Audio by Raising Free People Network.
I'm Akilah S. Richards, grief literacy educator, longtime podcaster, here to explore what we lose individually and collectively when we fail to name grief as part of our everyday life. Grief isn't just about death, it's about endings, expired relationships, outgrown roles, identities and dreams we released. If we tend to grief in its diversity, we can expand our capacity to navigate change, to hold space for each other, and to move with more presence in a rapidly shifting world. This is What I Let Die podcast, where we move from grief struck to grief tending. What happens when we stop avoiding grief? Let's find out together. Hey, you. Yeah, you. The one who wanted to get it right. The one who read the books or didn't. The one who swore you'd never do what they did. Or who hoped to do exactly what they did, only better, softer, more attuned. The one who became a parent or tried to. Or the one who walked away or was walked away from. This one is for you, for me, for all of us who are grieving the parent we thought we would be. We started this series with foundations, right? Understanding grief and non-body death. Those foundational episodes were episodes 1, 2, and 3. I highly recommend you listen to those. Then we moved into where we find ourselves now, part 2, personal grief work, where we're recognizing and managing our own losses. So that started in episode 4. We touched it in episode 5. We'll touch it in this one. And in next week's episode about friendings, friendships ending. Because, friend breakups can be so layered. I tell you, again, I do this because I need it to, and that's never lost on me as I sit to move through these conversations, first in this monologue form, and then hopefully with your feedback and insights and your stories in the Wild Podcast chat room. And there's always a link to that in any episode, wherever you are listening to the episode. So this week we are touching on the tender topic of parenting in relation to grief. And as always with this podcast, we are talking about grief in its vast forms, not just a grief that is connected to death, like a physical, biological death. But we don't skip over that death either, because the death of a child is worth naming and witnessing in efforts to support other people, families who've experienced that. And I've been in the freshness of that, the newness of that type of loss with folks in grief circles actually quite recently. The death of one son and a heavy diagnosis of their one surviving child. I've bore witness to mothers and fathers whose child was stillborn, others whose child lived for a short period of time, less than a week. And I have listened and held space and offered prayers of all kinds and relief in all healthy forms for those families moving through that level of pain. And so I want to just take a moment of silence to honor that particular type of grief right now. Let's talk about grief that doesn't always look like grief. like the ache of watching your child become a stranger, not because something went wrong, but because they are sovereign, whole, unfolding in a direction that you and I cannot control, and that we sometimes, maybe oftentimes, do not understand. And let's talk about grieving control, grieving certainty, grieving the clean lines of quote unquote good parenting that you imagined would anchor you, would affirm you. Let's talk about the grief of estrangement, whether you've chosen to go no contact with your parents or your child has chosen that with you. Or maybe the estrangement lives in the quiet where y'all still speak, y'all still show up, but you feel a growing distance that you don't know how to name. There's a grief there too, a no fix available type of grief. Of course, anticipatory grief, a grief of doubt. Am I doing this right? Did I already mess this up? Whose couch are they going to be laid up on talking about what I did to them as a parent? I've been able to look at parenting from so many different angles as a result of spending years as an unschooling organizer, being invited into various communities and families to speak to the unravelings and the opposite, the building up of their culture, their family culture, and how parenting is showing up and whether or not it's working out or not for the adults, for the children, for the elders, when we talk about intergenerationality. So I speak with so much of that experience in mind. And as I was feeling through this episode, there were so many things that came up as Kate, my co-producer for this season, was looking at my notes and intentions. She also, as an unschooling parent, had so much that came up, and I'm weaving all of that into this episode in hopes that it really helps you to feel more seen and heard in the types of grief that you are experiencing as a parent, but that have not been named. In mainstream parenting spaces, power is currency. Children are often talked about as extensions of us, right? Our little mini-me's. But what happens when you realize that your child isn't you at all? What happens when you decide to let go of conventional parenting scripts and lean into something else? Maybe something like partnership or permission or presence. Some of us come to that shift through choice. Others through collapse. And sometimes both them things are the same. For me, I'll give an example of this choice and collapse looking like two sides of the same coin. And I'm going to keep my family's privacy intact so the story is real and true, but the details are purposely omitted. I'll say that this story is about the grief of missing something that you cannot believe you missed as a parent. I missed something. I missed something major, and I missed it for like a couple of years. I missed it for a couple of years. And when it came out, it wasn't told, it was discovered, found out. So when it was found out, I remember feeling like such a freaking stranger in my family, in our family of 4. I felt like a stranger. I felt like everybody else was also a stranger. I felt like, was anything real? Was anything true? Were we just like kikiing in each other's faces when this real major shit was happening? How come I didn't see it? How come I could be this really present partnership type of unschooling mom and miss something that I should not have missed. I remember and still am processing that type of grief of missing something that I cannot believe I missed. Something that we spent a lot of time together and individually working through with professional support. I'm grateful for the levels of support that we were able to call in, and I'm grateful for the work that I do in the world and doing it in such a way that the reciprocity for what I need is always present, because my God, the amount of resources that we spent on counseling support and in a time where I had it to offer, and there were many other times where I wouldn't have had it. And that's another type of grief as we talk about grief of entrepreneurship. We've had that conversation about what that means, and that also impacts my parenting in so many ways. A type of guilt and shame that comes in and out of focus of like, oh my God, if I would have stayed at a law firm or continued down that path, then we would have had like really, really good insurance and da da da. And these sort of things are just part of the conversation as I talk about grief. But in this instance, really because of donors, which I'm using the language of resource weavers now more often for donor partners. But there was really just like one person in my life at that time who was so touched and moved and impacted by my work in the world that she offered support and space for rest through money. And so much of that at that time went to the support that we needed as a family to move through this thing that my partner and I missed. And with that support, we learned that that language of missing it was not healthy. And yet I'm still saying that to you because I still feel like that. I still feel like, how could I miss it? But thankfully, because I have been able to grieve it and continue to grieve it, I don't hold myself or Chris, my partner, with any sort of blame and shame. I was going to say shame first because that one was so big, shame and blame. I don't feel the shame and blame in the same way anymore. It still aches. It will never not ache, I don't think. But I don't hold it in the same way. We talk about it as a family. We've had conversations about it. I no longer feel like I wish the shit would have never happened and it could just go away and we could just move forward and all the things that I went through in the thick of it. So being able to tend to that grief thinned it out, watered it down so that it's not this thick fluid that I'm trying to swim in, muddy and getting stuck. But instead, I can maybe float on it. I can be buoyant. I can move around in it. I can recognize it as separate from me. It is the water and I am the body, not a body of water. It's not all one convoluted, confusing, heavy, frustrating thing that feels like it's going to kill me. Because I was able to pay attention and tend to that grief. And in that case, with support, lots of support. Before I could get to the point of tending to my grief myself, I needed to call in other support. But when I got to the point of being able to grieve, I had some ideas about what I was grieving. I had to grieve the neat and tidy. The idea that if I did it right, I wouldn't break and I wouldn't be broken. That love and attention would be enough to carry us all through. But love, as I have learned, and maybe as you've already learned, isn't always about protection. Sometimes love ain't gonna stop some shit from happening. Sometimes it's about presence. Sometimes love is about pause. Sometimes it's about letting a version of yourself die so that a different version can begin to breathe And for me, that version I was letting die was that version of mother that caught all the things, that saw all the things. She had to die. She had to not be the primary entity or energy that I call on in my mother work, because I was always going to be disappointed if I thought I could help to keep this tidy little box of unharmed. So here's some questions that I'm sitting with, and maybe you are too. Who is the parent I thought I'd be? Who have I become instead? What am I grieving about my child or about my own childhood that I have not made room to feel? What if this mess, this untidiness, what if this mess isn't the failure, but it's actually the field of becoming? It's exactly what needs to happen in order for us to move into something safer, healthier, more authentic, more honest, more us. Those are my questions, and I'll say them again. Who is the parent I thought I'd be? Who have I become instead? What am I grieving about my child or about my own childhood that I haven't made room or enough room to feel? And what if this mess isn't the failure, but actually the field of becoming in a healthy way, becoming something safer, better, stronger, more solid? If this episode stirred something in you, pause with it, tend to it, let it say what it needs to say to you, journal about it, talk to somebody about it. And of course, when you're ready, you can come over to radicalselfie.org/wild for the postmortem about this episode, where I share a little reflection after each episode. It also will always have the link on that page to the Wild Podcast chat room to share what landed, what shook you, what softened you, because you don't have to carry your parenting grief in isolation, even if no one else gets it. I probably do. So, be with this. Let this serve you. There are no fixes or answers here, just an opportunity to be more aware and more present. Thank you for being here for yourself and for me. And I will talk to you next week. Peace.
This episode is part of a multi-episode series that serves as a public, free grief literacy project called What I Let Die podcast. The show is co-produced by Akilah S. Richards and Kate Umstatter-Thompson. Show art by Chris Richards. Much of the content comes from or is inspired by Akilah's Grief Tenders course called the Eyelid Course, an acronym for I Let It Die. Show notes and resources are available at radicalselfie.org/wild. Share the show with friends and be sure to rate the show wherever you listen to it.